CSGO and Rainbow Six Siege are not what they used to be. For those viewers that only stay for the first 30 seconds checking out a video, the short and sweet of it is that both games have fallen from grace. Although both games feel and look very different, both games face the same issues with bad gunplay, poor hit registration, and terrible matchmaking. Ubisoft has a tendency to overcorrect and nerf everything, changing the feel of the game every season, and Valve does basically nothing with CSGO, only stepping in when things hit a boiling point. I could go into either game right now and expect the following: have my shots hit my target and do next to no damage, get into a lobby and have it either be lopsided or have a cheater, or have a mechanic to be introduced or an old one removed, or have a broken mechanic still be in the game. Some of you might say, what do you expect from a 10 and 7-year-old game? And to that I will say that in those 10 and 7 years, I would have expected those issues to be resolved by now. For the rest of you that want to watch more than the first 30 seconds, let's get into the meat and bones of the video. I'm not really sure where to start this video because there are just so many different angles you could come from about the state of either game, let alone both in trying to compare them. The rabbit holes you could fall into to find the root cause or the decline of both games would probably constitute many separate videos or one long video that deep dives into all the nuances they present. I tried comparing the games side by side at each bullet point I made in a long form video, but it got too messy and unbalanced to do the issues at hand any justice. Without too much exposition or trying to make an elaborate video comparing the two games and losing track of what I'm saying, let's start with the list of problems both games face before going into them. Hit registration, changing game elements, poor matchmaking, and customer exploitation. These problems aren't unique to CS or Siege alone, but I also know that the frequency and persistence of these problems in them is second to none. I have not played any other modern shooter where these types of issues occur more often than they don't, save for the customer exploitation part, and it becomes infuriating that with the age of CSGO and Rainbow Six Siege, neither game has resolved long-standing issues. With that said, let's start from the top of the list and start with hit registration. Both CSGO and Rainbow Six Siege go about hit registration in different ways, but still manage to come to the same conclusion. There are two sides to this hit registration coin. One, your bullets don't do shit, or two, somehow your character and hitbox aren't aligned. On the first side of the coin, no matter how many times you spray someone or mag dump your bullets into them, seeing them still stand or only get knocked down makes you question everything and how surviving that was even possible. Regardless of your recoil control or the amount of bullets in your mag or how accurate your shot was, you will just not be able to kill some of your opponents. On the flip side, you could be strafing or rotating around something only to have the enemy shoot beside you or behind you, and even though you and your character were not in the line of fire, you still get hit. It's like your hitbox was lagging behind you even though the replay clearly shows your bullets not hitting your character and you still take damage or die. You could also have the opposite of this problem, where you're shooting at the enemy and your bullets are making contact, whether that's with the sound or with blood splatter, only for them to take no damage. It gets even worse with nitro cells and nades because those are some of the most inconsistent explosive weapons either developer has implemented in their game. One moment a nade will land at the feet of your opponent and do nothing, and another moment a nitro that is just a couple feet away from you and behind a solid wall will kill you instantly. There is just no consistency in how they work, and I refuse to believe that they are accurate. In both CSGO and Siege, I've run into these issues, and I know I'm not the only one that has. I've seen it in Discord calls when reviewing game footage from Siege, or when rewatching my CSGO recordings, or reading about it on forum posts. It's an issue that neither game has nailed down. I play with a stable internet connection and my ping rarely goes above 40, so I doubt that it happens so often because my internet isn't good enough. I did come across a video on YouTube a couple weeks ago where someone demonstrated in TF2 how there is a chance, although not a high one, that you could theoretically hit someone's character model, but the bullet would not go through the hitbox. It got me thinking that if that type of hitbox or hit registration issue was possible, could it be present in a similar form in either CSGO or Siege? Granted, TF2 is older than either game we're looking at today, but it still raises the question, to what extent can hitbox and hit registration issues be found in newer games? Changing game elements or changing metas is something that Siege is a much more frequent offender of than CSGO, at least currently. Siege players are all too familiar with every season always changing something up, not because something was too powerful or overused, but because Ubisoft can't decide on anything and how it should work. In my 4 years of playing Siege, there have been lots of reworks and tweaks to maps, menus and UI, operators, their abilities and their gadgets, and most importantly, guns. And they aren't always some minor adjustments or tweaks, they are game changing reworks that need some significant time to get used to. Ubisoft has this habit of overcorrecting and nerfing the ever living hell out of something because some two people on the internet complained about it and use it as justification to make those changes. Map reworks are the least drastic out of the bunch. I'm pretty sure that all games change their maps every so often because it keeps the game fresh, but it also fixes some issues that people may have been complaining about for a while. I won't get into any specifics on map changes in Siege because, for the most part, they are actually decent and they are the easiest to overcome, but I will say that the old Outback was better. The most useless change Ubisoft does on what feels like a yearly basis is to change the menus and UI around a little bit. There is no advantage of doing so other than confusing players where things have moved around to. With all the other issues present in the game, do you really think that it is a priority to change menus and UI? Literally, leave them alone and focus on the things that actually break your game first. When Ubisoft changes things about an operator and the gun they use, things can get very chaotic as the meta is no longer where it used to be. First, focusing on the abilities of an operator. Whenever you change how an operator's ability is supposed to work, it can change the whole dynamic of how you use that operator. For instance, all defender devices that go outside the building of the map, those gadgets have a certain time window before they're disabled for the rest of the round. That impacts how you use Echo, Mozzie, and Valk, where you're no longer able to use those devices for outdoor recon purposes, even though there are cameras outside the building already. Doc had his stim gun changed from how much it healed, from doing something like 50 HP to fully healing, or whatever it is now and whatever it will be. Rook Armor allowed players just to get downed instead of dying when they hit 0 HP, but now when you're down with Rook Armor, you can withstand and pick yourself up, something that Zov could do, but was also removed for some reason. And oh, for all the reworks that Clash gets, she still can't be fixed. Good job, Ubi. When nerfing the ability of an operator doesn't work, Ubisoft goes and nerfs the guns instead. Because in Siege, you shoot your gun a lot. I know, shocking. So these changes stand out a lot more. The most well-known example of this is when Ela had her Scorpion nerfed into the ground, so much so that you could barely hit your target even when standing at point-blank range. Ela's Scorpion is a viable option again, but it was not what it used to be before any reworks. The last significant change that I remember is of the AK-74 and of the LMGs getting super strong recoil. Ace, Capitão, Finka, Fuse, Zofia all got nerfed because people don't like it when you can shoot them with a gun. Who would have guessed? In tandem with that, sometimes Ubisoft doesn't want to add recoil to a gun, but would rather remove the sights from the gun. A few years ago, people were livid that Jaeger lost his ACOG sights and only had his hollow and reflex sights remaining. Recently, Iana got her zoom scopes removed because Ubi deemed her too powerful and therefore needed some sort of nerf. It's definitely annoying to lose a sight, but I would much rather not have a zoomed scope than to have uncontrollable recoil. The last and most rare change Ubisoft could make is removing a gun from an operator entirely. There are only two examples that I am aware of, so please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, is Mozzie losing his Super Shorty and Sledge losing his SMG-11. Why do these changes even happen? I assume it's because someone at Ubisoft wants to create a riot in the community and drive traction back to the game. There is no point in removing guns from an operator because it doesn't really solve any core issues, especially not the Super Shorty. It is absolutely criminal that it's not back on Mozzie yet. From what I've seen and what I know, all these changes are made to balance the pick rate of operators. Every season, Ubisoft releases a chart of operators and where they land on one of 4 quadrants based on how powerful they are and how picked they are. When an operator is too powerful, they try and nerf that operator in order to bring them back in line with the rest of the ops. I think it is an extremely flawed strategy because it not only makes the game inconsistent, but it also creates so many other issues by allowing room for new bugs and glitches to emerge, and it just shifts the power dynamics to some other operators. And the update notes are whatever they are, Ubisoft explicitly points out which target population these changes and nerfs are directed to, with many of them being towards top and pro players. In a game like CSGO where these types of constant changes are far and few between nowadays, people have the hard task of learning how to counter powerful weapons. Ubisoft should not have to baby their player base when a mechanic isn't the way they want it, or because they think a gun is too powerful. The players should just learn how to adapt to those abilities and guns and whatever else because the game starts feeling like a chore to constantly relearn how to play. The sooner Ubisoft stops changing anything and everything to balance things out, the better the game will play and feel. Ever since I started playing CSGO, the amount of changes I've experienced and seen are actually minimal. When strictly looking at the same categories as we did with Siege, minus the part about operators, maps are the only thing that changes most about CSGO. I've only seen Cobblestone and Cache get any reworks done, and those were mostly facelifts. CSGO also cycles through community maps, so the map choices that players have available are always new and mostly exciting. In terms of menu and UI, nothing has really changed other than the addition of a couple new tabs in an already pre-existing layout, and that's about it. In terms of guns, the changes aren't extremely significant either. Unlike in Siege, gun recoil changes aren't as strong going from one extreme to the other, rather they are more like minor adjustments. I would argue that CSGO gun changes are so minimal that if you were to grab a player from 2015 and told them to play the game today, they would be a bit surprised about some changes, but overall they would be able to adapt within a couple games. It's so strange that with Siege there's so much to complain about with guns that comparing it to CSGO makes it feel like a whole science. Well, that might be because Ubisoft makes it a whole science. The one thing that Ubisoft should take away from Valve when it comes to guns is to be more laissez-faire with Siege. Make it consistent, don't touch it too much, and only make minor adjustments, not whole reworks and drastic changes. High-ranked and pro players got to the position they are in because they know how to play the game effectively, not because they rely strictly on one operator. Once you nerf one operator, they'll find another operator to play more consistently, and it becomes a never-ending game of cat and mouse. I'm going to start with Siege again because with the most recent season, Solar Raid, Ubisoft introduced two new game systems that were meant to prevent people from griefing and from cheating in their games. That being Player Reputation and Ranked 2.0. Player Reputation is a simple concept. The more friendly fire and the more team kills you get, the lower your reputation will become. This is to prevent players from getting mad at each other and killing one another, and this may surprise you, but it actually isn't terrible. It's certainly not perfect, but I have seen a significant decrease of griefing in my matches, whether that's quick match or ranked. What isn't decent or even mediocre is Ranked 2.0. It is a flaming pile of hot garbage. Originally intended to prevent people from scaling into high ranks quickly and cheaters from ruining matches, I can firmly say it only achieved one of those goals. In order to level the playing field for all players, everyone who plays ranked must start at the lowest rank possible, Copper 5, and work their way up. It sounds noble in theory not to let people piggyback off one another to get into a high rank, until you realize that rank doesn't mean as much as it used to when you factor in that you can basically queue up with anyone. Your skill determines more than it used to in terms of how you rank up or those who you queue with, but it doesn't change the fact you still have to constantly play ranked to get to where you want to be. If they kept the old MMR system and your placement matches the same, but added in skill-based matchmaking and reduced MMR loss, instead of a whole new ranked system, it would have been an actual improvement that I would have welcomed. One thing that hasn't changed with the new ranked system is the frequency of cheaters that you run into. Just today, the day that I'm writing this script, I queued up with my friend to play some ranked for the first time in months, and in the 3 games that we played, we already ran into someone who was spinbotting. Helicopter, helicopter. I know that in past seasons, cheating was a huge issue, with people using walls and aim as frequently as New Yorkers buy bagels, so hearing that a new anti-cheat system was to be used in tandem with Rank 2.0 got me and other players excited. When I first started playing Solar Raid and realized that none of the cheating issues were fixed, I just stopped playing Ranked and moved over to Quick Match just to get my Battle Pass items. I'm not sure if the engine that Siege runs on is responsible for the ease in which hackers can bypass the anti-cheat, or if the anti-cheat system is just so poorly built that it lets anyone through, but no amount of cheating has been impacted with the Rank 2.0 changes. No matter how hard Ubisoft tries, they literally cannot go a season without making some drastic changes in Siege, and Ranked 2.0 is another one of those examples. How much Ranked 2.0 has impacted my playing experience to play with other players in a similar skill group, it's hard for me to tell. I know from all other past seasons, team balancing was terrible. I cannot count how many times I've played with teammates that couldn't pull their weight, if not by KD, then not by utility and callouts, or had the opposite be true and have one guy on the opposing team doing all the heavy lifting and his teammates dragging him down. Whatever the case, many matches felt unfair. Because Ubisoft butchered yet another season in Siege, I have played the game a lot less than I have in previous seasons. I honestly feel like this may be the last season of Siege I play before I quit completely. For those wondering, CSGO doesn't fare too much better either. In December 2018, CSGO was made free to play. Many people were worried that making the game free to play would allow for those who had VAC bans for cheating or griefing to pick up a new copy of the game and disturb matches once again. To prevent such easy access to those types of players from ruining matches again, Prime matchmaking was introduced. Prime is a filter of sorts that divides the player base between those that want to play the game with others who paid for the game and those that didn't. Prime was given out for free to all players who bought the game before it was made free to play, and is on sale for about $10 for those players who came in afterwards. Because you have to pay for Prime matchmaking, it creates a barrier of entry for those that want to cheat in the game. Prime does create a higher cost of entry to anyone who does want to disturb games, but it won't stop it from happening completely. There have been plenty of games where a player is openly griefing, or when a player is using some sort of hacks on either team, and it has caused me to quit playing CSGO for months at a time because of it. Prime was supposed to help alleviate that worry that your lobby won't have someone who is cheating or griefing, but as the years have moved forward, it has become less effective at preventing cheaters. Prime also doesn't help in making matchmaking fair. In a similar vein to Siege before Ranked 2.0, matchmaking isn't skill-based or necessarily ranked-based either, but what feels like finding a group of 4 or 10 people to play a game and randomly assigning players to either team. Some matches you'll be carried by your teammates, and other times you'll be facing a team that struggles to break 10 kills as a collective. If Prime was also able to properly balance out the teams instead of just being a paywall for those that want to play in better lobbies, I could see how that would help keep the game afloat. CSGO's matchmaking is inconsistent at best, and it comes down to chance how well your team performs or how good the players on the other team are, regardless of Prime. It's also up to chance how well the anti-cheat software can detect someone who's cheating or prevent those from wanting to ruin your game from doing so. For anyone who still does play CSGO and does have Prime, what game mode do you run into cheaters in the most? For me personally, I run into the most cheaters in Wingman, or when I'm playing Mirage in competitive. I'm not sure if it's just me that has this issue with that game mode and that map, but I can't be the only one. All of the games that we enjoy today are sadly monetized beyond belief. I can't remember a game that was released by a AAA studio and did not have some sort of battle pass or loot box system or some cosmetics or DLCs that didn't cost an arm and a leg for next to nothing. Even games that don't have too much going on in them or games that are well past their prime still want to squeeze every penny they can out of their player base. Hearts of Iron 4, a game which I like to play from time to time, is close to 7 years old, still charges over $20 for a DLC pack that changes the playability of one or a handful of countries or adds a mechanic to the game, and there's 5 such DLC packs. That's on top of the $50 price tag for the base game. Both CSGO and Siege are older than Hearts of Iron 4, even if not by much, and have found their own unique ways to squeeze players out of their money. Back in 2015-2016, CSGO gambling was at a crazy high, with people not only opening up their item crates in-game, but also playing on website spinners, most notably with CSGO Lotto, which exposed the massive flaw with CSGO and Valve. The most popular influencers were launching their own websites and rigging the odds of them winning something expensive on stream or video and not disclosing that the websites that they were shilling out to their viewers were owned by them. This conflict of interest came to a head with CSGO Lotto, run by Team Martin and Syndicate, and it came crashing down when it was revealed that they were the owners of CSGO Lotto and were rigging the odds for them to win big while claiming they had nothing to do with the website. This crushed both of their reputations and put Valve on the hot seat for not doing anything about stopping their community from getting out of hand and scamming each other. You would expect that this kind of scandal would have made Valve more aware of what its players and community were doing and crack down on third-party betting websites, but in fact, they really didn't. CSGO betting websites are still a dime a dozen, and Valve doesn't want to crack down on these third parties because they help prop up the CSGO community market and inflate the prices of skins and consumables. Although Valve denounces the practice of these third parties publicly, their actions don't corroborate that because as long as these websites are still active, Valve inadvertently gets to collect their sales fee whenever those skins get sold on the community market. CSGO doesn't have a battle pass yet, but Valve is still able to monetize the game through the sale of sticker capsules, music kits, tournament badges and passes, and through the collection of sales fees through the aforementioned community market. Valve is so good at double dipping their player base that when they want to buy something like a music kit or a sticker capsule directly in the game, they will be able to take a cut from any sale thereafter on the community market and make money off one item multiple times. Since these are cosmetic items, they don't cost much to produce and can, in theory, be distributed an infinite number of times, allowing Valve to pocket all the revenue from doing so with next to no work. Valve still incentivizes gambling via loot boxes because they are so cheap to buy. Most weapon crates you buy or randomly receive after a game are cheap, not costing more than a couple dimes and rarely more than a couple dollars. The reason these crates are so cheap is because they are useless unless you have a key for them, which usually costs over $5 and can get much more expensive. Because some skins in those weapon crates can cost easily over $200, it's easy for people to want to take their chances and potentially win something big instead of paying the market value for these desired items. If you thought it couldn't get much more worse than this, you might be right about that, but not by much. In 2020, Ubisoft released the first Battle Pass in Siege to coincide with the SI tournament that year. It gave players more to do in the game, with challenges and earning exclusive items and whatever else you'd expect from a typical Battle Pass. In short, the Battle Pass was inoffensive and it gave players something else to do if they wanted to pay for it. If you want extra premium content, mainly skins that doesn't really change much about the game, then go for it. If that's all that Ubisoft would have done with the Battle Pass, I wouldn't be talking about it. Less than 2 years later, with the introduction of High Caliber, that would change. When the Battle Pass for High Caliber was released, Ubisoft decided it would be a good idea to add operator backgrounds and portraits. Instead of adding a new skin or an additional alpha pack or even a stupid charm, the newest cosmetic item of just having a unique background or portrait for your operator dropped. These cosmetics serve as nothing other than filler for the Battle Pass or for seasonal item packs with useless content that no one asked for. You don't need to own the skin or the weapon or anything to have the portrait, you just have them. How insulting is it for players to already pay for premium content just to have the need to pad it out with garbage? I can't pinpoint when this happened, but within the last year, Ubisoft also made egregious price adjustments to all seasonal content. Whenever you play something like Doctor's Curse or Snow Brawl or whatever the Japanese samurai and robot war events are called, the alpha packs are mighty expensive, like multiple 100,000 renown or thousands of R6 credits just to get all of them. Even though these events have a lifespan of only like 2 weeks, Ubisoft preys on those that need the exclusive skins to sink money into the game and suck them dry for all they're worth. With the addition of those backgrounds and portraits, Ubisoft pads the ever-living Christ out of these seasonal alpha packs, so the players that don't want to sink any money have an even lower chance of getting the skins or items they want. Seasonal alpha packs aren't the only thing to get price increases, but elite skins also got a price bump. Elite skins were added into the game as a cosmetic that allows your operator to look different and have a cool animation at the end of a game, if you get the MVP, and to get gear that no one else can have unless they pay for the elite. They are relatively useless and are meant for those who want to show off when they play the game, but even that crowd of people isn't safe. Somewhere within the last season or so, Ubisoft jacked up the prices of new elites by some 20%. Instead of paying the normal 1800 R6 credits, or $15 for a skin, you now have to pay 2160 R6 credits, or about 20 bucks. Ubisoft is predatory too in how they get players to pay for content, in some cases exclusive content, and still have the audacity to pad out the content and mark it up. It's disgusting how much Ubisoft charges for things in the game that change nothing and expect players to pay more for it. I'm not saying they can't charge for items like a battle pass or seasonal alpha packs or elite skins, but charging players through the nose for these things should not be acceptable. There's a lot to unpack with everything I've said. It did sound like I was going balls to the wall with Siege in some of my points, but that's because so much more happens with Siege and its development than anything does with CSGO. For all the time that either game has been around, I really did expect that they would get better as time moved on. They have actually regressed in quality. The reason for making this video is because both CSGO and Rainbow Six Siege are games I've sunk over 1,000 hours in each, spent about $100 in each, and know about every nuance there is to know in either game. With that being said, I am frustrated that no amount of loyalty or amount of investment I've given to these games, nothing has been fixed for the better. When I look at CSGO, I know it's Valve's cash cow as it's their most actively played game, so the amount of changes they need to make in the game to generate money is next to none. A part of me still wishes that they could make CSGO the best game it could be despite that, if not with graphics then at least with gameplay. For the longest time, CSGO had no direct rivals and could stand on a hill of its own, but with games like Valorant coming out that fixes all the shortcomings of a 10-year-old game, it's hard not to want to jump ship for something better. With Siege, I'm not even sure where to begin dissecting this mess. Ubisoft had a great thing going for it with a game style and gameplay that I have not seen any other game even remotely replicate. Siege just plays differently to most other shooters and provides for a truly unique shooter experience. But with all the changes, all the reworks, and all the other issues the game faces not being resolved, it has slowly but surely made itself a worse game to play every season. Both games face the same issues as mentioned at the start of the video, and for the decade and 7 years that CSGO and Siege have been out for, I would have expected for hit registration to be accurate, or for matchmaking to be fair, or for the constant tweaking of game assets to stop. With all the money that people pour into these games, how could you not have fixed those issues by now? I think it's ridiculous that Ubisoft micromanages every detail of their game to balance it out, but won't bat an eye to more glaring issues that Siege faces. It's also ridiculous that Valve sits on their mountain of cash and can't be bothered to put a little bit of effort into fixing their games, not just CSGO. At some point you have to wonder when a new game engine or a new installment of either game is needed before the physics and the cheating gets to a point where normal players become the minority. The thing that is breaking these games is simple: publisher greed. If either publisher and their development teams just put a little bit of care and thought into their games, we could be playing games that work as intended and are truly balanced the way that we, the players, want them to be. I am not saying that I would be able to go on the development team and magically fix either game, but someone who has the experience in working on these types of games and with the managerial experience would be able to do so. I feel like my days of playing CSGO and Rainbow Six Siege are coming to an end soon. The amount of joy I get from playing either game has waned over the past year, and my desire for something better and newer has increased. The constant frustration and disappointment has reached its boiling point many times before, but it's now gotten to the point that giving the benefit of the doubt to either publisher to make their game better has vanished. I'm not sure what I'll play instead, but whatever it is, I hope that the publisher gives their game the proper treatment it deserves.